If you're looking for a 7-seat four-wheel drive for the family, chances are you've got things like an Isuzu MU-X and Ford Everest on your consideration list. But I reckon there's one that you might have forgotten, and this is it here behind me. It's the SsangYong Rexton. It's from South Korea, and it's a bit of a dark horse, a bit of a forgotten child in this segment. However, there's a lot to like about this car. It's good on value, it's got a big warranty, and there's actually a lot of details about this car that I really like. And I'm going to run you through everything you need to know about the SsangYong Rexton in this review. So let's have a closer look. The 2023 SsangYong Rexton comes in two different spec levels. It starts with the ELX at $48,990 drive away, but we've got the Up Spec Ultimate, and that costs $55,990, but that's also drive away. This gets dual zone climate control, heated seats front and rear, ventilation up front, and Napa quilted leather trimming. There's also tire pressure monitoring, a 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster, wireless phone charging, a 360-degree camera system, and a powered tailgate. Considering most diesel four-wheel drive competitors in this segment start at a similar price to this relatively decked-out model, there is no denying the value of this Rexton. Under the bonnet is a 2.2-litre 4-cylinder turbo diesel engine that is SsangYong's own. That makes 148 kilowatts and 441 newton meters, running through an 8-speed automatic transmission with part-time four-wheel drive. There's also a low-range transfer case but no locking differentials. The Rexton gets a 3.5-tonne braked towing capacity, and the payload is solid as well at 830 kilos. Also, if you're looking to tow big numbers, the gross combination mass, an important number, is good as well at 6,460 kilos. The major appeal of this Rexton in comparison to other four-wheel drives in the segment is that at $55,000 you're getting a top spec model in comparison to an entry level or maybe one rung up in other makes and models in this segment. And it's actually not too bad overall inside here. You've got a lot of features going on. You've got heating and ventilation in these seats. These have electric adjustment for the driver and the passenger. That's all really nice. And you've got a good setup in terms of storage for everyday usage. Not sure about this material here. It almost looks like a houndstooth or something like that on the console, but slide these back out of the way and you've got cup holders there. You've got two USB points. You've got a wireless charging pad as well, and there is a 12-volt outlet hiding in this center console. That's not a bad size either. So in terms of power outlets and storage, you're pretty well sorted here. Got an interesting sort of crosshatch material here on the dashboard, a bit more of that houndstooth thing going on. The buttons might not feel amazing in comparison to some other four-wheel drive based SUVs in this segment, but it's all functional and it works well enough. The infotainment display, it's relatively small, but it does have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto in there, although there is no native navigation in this one as we have it here at the moment. But there is a nice digital instrument cluster in front of the driver there. That's quite sharp, well presented, and you do have a bit of extra information to dig through there. But I've got to say, for $55,000, this presents really nicely in comparison to others in the segment. You've even got memory seats with some flash buttons on the door here. That kind of reminds me of some flash European cars. Here's the second row of the Rexton, and I've got to say it's not a bad place to be. There isn't a huge amount of legroom going on here. That's my driving position up front there. I'm just under 6 foot in case you're wondering. Footroom is pretty good, but headroom is in great supply, and I do like the amount of visibility going on here. And it is comfortable because I've got my seat in a slightly relaxed position at the moment. This is a 60-40 split that we've got here, but you can tilt all the way back. I'm not sure how safe that is for actual driving, but you can just get it back slightly there for a nice relaxed position on the road. Now, I can pop this down. I've got an armrest there. I've got some cup holders, but also a handy little storage nook in there too. That's actually pretty nice. I like how that all comes together. I've got air vents there. I've got some USB points as well, and also a 12-volt plug. So your power needs are handled quite well, and I've got to say, this isn't too bad. I've even got heated seats in the second row here. For 55 grand, that's not too bad. All right, we're in the third row of this Rexton. Bad stuff to talk about first. Headroom, there's not a whole lot of it. We've kind of got this bar here, the roof, I suppose, which is right above my head. So if you're an adult in the back, you'll be trying to sort of squeeze your head back or sitting forward probably to get comfortable. It's not a lot of legroom or headroom. You could say this is good for kids, but not for adults. Another thing to talk about is getting in to the back here. It is a fairly heavy operation. You've got to tilt the seats forward and then tumble them with a separate lever. You need to put a bit of muscle into it to get in. So little kids, older people probably won't appreciate that. But once you're in, hey, if you're smaller than I am, you'll be fairly happy in the back here. Good things to talk about. I've got a bit of storage here on the side there. I've got some air vents. I've got a 12-volt power outlet as well. There's some storage on this side. And you know what? It's not too bad. Visibility isn't great. The windows are quite small, but it is good to see an airbag in the third row here, which is very important for safety. Here's the boot of the Rexton in 7-seat mode, and it's actually not too bad in terms of size. I'm imagining a week's worth of groceries can fit in here, no worries. And this second floor here that can pop out, and you've got a little bit of extra space there as well. But this will come in handy. I'll show you when you pop this third row down. Naturally, the boot gets a lot bigger in 2-row mode, but now I can pop this back in, just like that. And now I've got a flat floor. That actually works reasonably well as a 5-seater now. The boot, of course, is really big in this sort of mode. I'm thinking holidays, time away, trips to Bunnings, that sort of thing. That is enough room for everyday usage. Although this Rexton shares the same 2.2 litre turbo diesel engine as the Musso, we've got a bit more power and torque available here. There's 148 kilowatts and 441 Newton meters. That runs through an 8-speed automatic gearbox. And I've got to say, there's nothing wrong with this powertrain at all for the application. It's reasonably refined and quiet for a diesel, of course. It definitely holds its own, I think, in comparison to something like a Mitsubishi Pajero Sport. Yes, there is a V6 powered Ford Everest. There is a 3-litre Isuzu MU-X available. They cost a lot more money when you do a spec for spec comparison between the two. That's the lane departure warning going off there. Don't worry about that. But I've got to say, this Rexton doesn't really put a foot wrong. One thing to note with this car in comparison to others in this segment is that it has independent rear suspension. Just about everything else has a live rear axle, and independent suspension does generally favour refinement and road comfort a little bit more than off-road performance. We'll find out about the off-road a little bit later, but in terms of just driving around town, this Rexton isn't too bad. In terms of road holding and that sort of thing, it's definitely not the best in class or anything like that, but for me, it holds its own well enough. Off-road, the Rexton proved to be a bit less impressive overall. It felt a bit limited in terms of ground clearance, but also the combination of independent suspension all round and no locking differentials means there was a lot of focus put onto that traction control system to keep moving. On the driving we did, the Rexton did soldier on and made its way up some decent challenges off-road. However, it did have a fair amount of wheel spin and a bit of lurching going on from time to time. It just didn't feel as inherently competent or capable as others in the segment. Well, this Rexton has done reasonably well off-road today, but I've got to say from the driver's seat, this doesn't feel as confident or as outright capable as other four-wheel drive SUVs in the segment. So if you're looking to do more serious off-roading, I would probably look elsewhere. But that being said, it's done everything today, and if that's the upper limit of what you're going to be doing as a four-wheel driver, this would be a good option. But more serious guys, maybe look elsewhere. But otherwise, this does present as a good option in the 7-seat SUV segment, especially when you consider value and inclusions, as well as that 7-year warranty on this SsangYong. It's got good comfort, good amenities from the first row through to the third row. I like the powertrain as well, and it's probably fallen off your radar because it's a lesser known brand, but I reckon it's probably worth a closer look.